pleasure to have you on here, offense coordinator at UNC. How you doing down there, Coach?
Doing good. Weather's good. It's warm, sunny today at least.
It's always when you're a college lacrosse coach, I feel like it's always sunny. Is that true?
No. I mean, if you go out in bad weather, it's those days that you feel like, hey, do I really want to be out here standing in the rain? But then you go out there. Once you get out there, you're fine. But it's just a matter of getting out the door.
So it's more like the environment. What about like over those days where your players make you feel like, why am I doing this? Or is not so much?
It's not for me. It's not. I've always had the adage like I get to go to coach lacrosse every day, so it's always been fun for me. There are guys, as Mike will probably tell you that, and John maybe too, is that there's a lot of my friends that sit there and go, "Why are we out on the road recruiting? Why are we doing this?" And I'm like, "Would you rather be in an office?" I'm like, "This is great. I love it." And that's the good part about being on the road during the summertime is that if it's a rainy day, I just sit there and go, I'm taking the day off and wait for another sunny day because there's enough tournaments out there to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really think there's too many bad days. I'd rather be in the snow than in the rain, but down
That's
here,
true. That chair you got, Coach, probably won't hold up well in the rain.
What?
That chair you run around with doesn't hold up well in the rain, does it?
No, that's when you stand and have an umbrella over top of your head.
Well, I think, Coach, this is the how you doing segment, so I think we need to know how you say how you doing.
I say, how you doing?
Corey says, how are you doing? So I just figured we could dive into that.
I don't have enough Italian to me to say it the right way, I guess.
Coach Filippo and I hit the Italian quota for the podcast with the how you doing.
Yeah, way too many. Coach Metz, what's the deal with your chair and the recruiting? Are you the type of guy like you got your chair, you bring it everywhere, or you just like you show up with nothing and you ask the tent like, hey, give me a chair?
Since I got down here, I've tried to figure out chairs that I could fly with. So when I get on a plane, I can pack it in my bag and fly with it. So it's it's one of those camping chairs you pull out, and it pops up and it looks pretty small. And guys like Slippo gives me shit for sitting in it, but to me, it's comfortable. It swivels. I'm good.
Does it have those like shocks in it to absorb a little impact? I worked with Coach Runkle and he had like the shock absorbent chair.
That's actually called a rocker, by the way, John. Okay. So I did have one of those in my car for like a month, but then when I had to fly back, I left it back up east with somebody. So yeah. Coach Petro and Coach Runkle have those.
Yeah.
They're very comfortable, though.
Oh, I was always jealous. That's why I was curious if you were in the elite fraternity of, I guess, the rocker recruiting chair crew.
No, I'm more in the thought process of what's the easiest thing to carry around with me now instead of folding things up and carrying. And there's a lot of times where I'll get a lot of grief because I'll literally just sit in a folding chair, which is, I feel like, more comfortable than some of the chairs that guys have out there.
Sure.
I got to give you a run in my chair, Coach. I think you'd like it.
Coach Metzy, how are you doing right now with staying connected with your team and, kind of getting through this situation?
Pretty good. We do probably a team Zoom like once a month. Once a week. And then every week we've been, since it's almost started, like 2 weeks after it started, I got on and try to keep the guys focused on the lacrosse part. We did offensive team Zooms where we broke down the next week's opponent and focused on whatever that team was. And so when we hit exams, we were basically done for 2 weeks, and now we're back doing it. So I'm trying to catch up on a couple teams that we missed. But it hopefully keeps the guys, we see each other, we bullshit for 10 minutes, we watch video for like 15, and then we, answer any questions, and I talk to the guys for another 5, and it's twice a week for 30 minutes. It's good just to see the guys' faces and hop on Zoom, and hopefully that keeps them in the lacrosse mode a little bit.
Yeah, I think one thing that's super interesting, Coach, that we're juggling with is like the Corona thing, and the season being canceled was obviously so abrupt for everybody. And you want to give your guys, initially we were like, we want to give them a little space, just to kind of sort through their stuff and get their routine dialed in. But now it's very like, all right, guys, we've had this extended off season. We had 2 extra months that we normally don't have. So I think, to your point, I mean, the teams that are going to be the most efficient in this time are going to set themselves up best for the 2021 spring.
Yeah, I think too, with the coronavirus and all this extended time, obviously all of us as coaches are trying to figure out who we're having back next year, because some guys are coming back, some guys aren't, plus you're adding a whole group of freshmen. So now you're trying to figure out how you're fitting anywhere from 50 to 70 guys in a 40-person locker room. So
very true.
The interesting part is like, okay, what happens where and who comes back. But I also think, that first 2 weeks we had off after the Corona I think all of us were somewhat depressed and not sure what to do and what was going to happen. At least on our side, they were still talking about us playing some ACC games down the road until they finally shut the whole thing down.
Right.
So, we were kind of like, all right, let's let them off, but now it's been back in full swing. I think with this being Memorial Day weekend, most guys will start picking things up starting next week, saying, hey, season's over with. Let's start getting ready for next year. And I'm not sure what BU's doing and Manhattan's doing, but we're going back to school early. We're starting a week earlier. August 10th classes. So our freshmen are probably coming in on the 7th or 8th. So we'll have to get up and get ready to go pretty quickly.
That's going to be interesting too with the recruiting calendar. If a bunch of stuff gets jammed into that, window between the end of July and, the dead period, I guess, in August, that like middle of August, that's going to be kind of interesting for schools that are getting back early, right? Like you got to start juggling. Do we worry about our team or 2022s or 21s that you haven't finished yet?
Yeah. I mean, that would be interesting. I mean, if we follow the same path as we did last year, our first 2 to 3 weeks will be basically volunteer. We're trying to get our 10 days done out of the way. So we will basically turn them over to our strength coach and make them voluntary workouts. And nobody misses the first 3 weeks of workouts anyway. So it's not a bad way to get them out of the way. And they go and work out, try to get themselves ready to play lacrosse again. By that standard, we could technically, 1 or 2 of us could leave campus and just make sure we try to see some events. Now, there is some rumors out there that I heard the other day that there could be a dead period through the whole summer. The NCAA might say, let's just shut it all down for everything and start it back up on September 1st, which would be interesting. But then September 1st, it would be a free-for-all. Like, you can do your camps, you can have you can do evaluations. So our lacrosse stuff would be off the table. So I would see a lot of guys doing, weekend stuff in September. I know that would suck for the high school guys playing football and soccer, but that's, bound to happen anyway.
Yeah, I think before we dive into maybe the drill segment, one thing, Coach Metz, I was kind of curious about when you're watching film of your guys, I know you're focusing on a team, but are you looking at specific individuals like, hey, Chris, I want you to watch this defenseman because he's probably the one guarding you. Look at his tendencies, etc. Or are you just kind of focus on like team concepts?
Focus on the team concepts, because my theory is that whoever plays us, we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them one-on-one. With the guys we have on our team and with the guys that we have coming in, I feel confident that our guys are going to, break people down.
That's nice.
If they're not, someone else is going to play in front of them.
That's nice, Coach. That must be a really nice philosophy to have going in week to week.
We did a whole pick episode to talk about how you can't beat people one-on-one, so you got to do picks.
Well, we do picks. I do picks all the time. I love them. I mean, it's great, but I feel like that's part of the system that you teach. And by doing that, you recognize like which teams are bad at playing picks, which teams are bad at playing off ball. So how do you get them involved? And so the focus was more which was great. I thought this year was when I did these things was I really looked at their team defense that you see and not worry about so much about the individual guys. Like if you're writing up a scouting report, like what checks does this guy throw? How does he play the ball? This guy's really not great against a split dodge or a rollback or whatever. It was just, here's the openings on the field. If we can get to this point, we're going to get it open.
Are you a basketball guy?
Yeah, I'm a basketball guy.
The
funny part is I've been reading a lot of football books. So, and listening to some of these guys, how they install offenses has been kind of interesting on, the reads of the quarterback, how you pick that up. And, if I can teach, I feel like if I can teach my guys, if you're dodging, you don't have to worry as long as you don't have to worry about protecting your stick, then you can dictate to the defense what you're going to do. And then that's going to determine who you have to look at to make the right pass.
We do a lot of that stuff, talk about reads and that article you sent me about Nick Saban. I mean, it's a lot of what we do. And I think what's interesting, John and I are D3 guys, Metz. So, when we used to have to play 2 games a week, he didn't have as much time to, scout Cortland and get ready for him. But now as having a week, you can kind of break out your week too. At least we do in a football sense, where Monday's us, Tuesday's zone, it's like Wednesday was pass Skelly day, and just kind of breaking it through that.
Yeah, well, I'm old enough, Mike, that I played 2 games a week when I played in Division I, so don't worry about that.
Well, we'll get to that, Coach. We'll get to the age factor later. All right, let's hold off on that. You want to dive into the drill? What do you think, Cor?
That's when the real men play. Yes, absolutely. Let's get into it.
Full.
All right, so we're going to talk about, I got this from Loyola. It's called a dog drill. What I really like about it is that, as you can see, it's a high-tempo drill. It's full field, a lot of transition involved, similar to what I saw on a previous version of what you guys did earlier about drills being offensive guys have to play both offense and defense. Defensive guys have to play both. I try not to let the ball slow down too much. You can teach your tack to ride, which is a big part of our game. And, one of the things with a lot of these transition drills, whether it's small field or long field, is that the middies need to transition in their minds quickly from O to D or D to O, which is a huge part. So this is the setup of the drill. You got your middies on both sides, color of each. You have a ground ball, so there's coaches on both sides of the field. You roll the ground ball out. Here, they're going to play the one-on-one ground ball, and whoever picks it up, I'm assuming that the pink team is going to pick it up. And so that pink guy's allowed to release straight to the cage. The defensive middy's got to go in and touch the X and then can react. So you get, you could get a 4-on-3 by throwing the ball ahead. You could get a 5-on-4 depending on how fast and guys read. And if guys are really slow or they bobble the ball, then this guy can get in and touch and maybe gets in and becomes a 5-on-5. And then as soon as there's a shot or save and the ball goes out of bounds, we just tell them to pick up the ball and get it out. So now they have to go, and now it's either, depending on where guys are, you can get a 5-on-4, you can get a 5-on-5, depending on the hole. So there's a couple segments, as you'll see, going through here in the next couple ones that will show. And if you guys want me to stop it, just let me know. Kind of demoed the first one. Ball's coming out. So he's running in. He's going to touch the X. This guy's breaking in. You can see him. He's throwing the ball right off the start. All right, so now they got a 5-on-4. We didn't do a good job. I like this guy to, again, we let them play it out. It is. But I think the best way is if this guy sits in and plays it as a flat break, he can go to either side without running behind the goal a little bit. So it gives him a little bit better advantage. Pick it up. Now guys are going back a little bit tired. All right. Part of the reason why it's called dog drill is if you do it long enough, the middies are definitely getting tired by running up and down the field. So you can simulate for coaches that want to play the pass down, pick down in transition, or throw the ball through X. It depends on what you want to do. But as long as the ball keeps hopping and going, we're going to probably, this year I'm going to try to do it more where you just like a lot of times, you don't have the ball for more than 5 seconds.
Right. Now, do you switch what side you start the ground ball?
Yeah, so that way you're getting guys from coming in from both sides, and everything's a little bit different.
I love the randomness of going the other way. Like, could be even, could be uneven. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, so whichever the opposing team, right? So whoever loses the ground ball, that opposing midfielder on the opposite side needs to touch the X. Is that how you declare the advantage?
So it slows it down, so you can't just run in and cover the guy.
Right. Right. No, that's cool. It's a cool little wrinkle to it. What year is this film, Coach? Are there any?
So this is fall of 2016.
Oh, nice roll dodge. Oh, back pipe. Ooh. How you doing?
These fields right now that these guys are playing on aren't there anymore because they ripped it all up with the addition of the new football facilities.
Is that a complaint, Coach?
No, it's great.
Oh, okay.
We get to somewhat use them, so it's fine. I don't care. We have a bunch of turfs.
Oh, great move. How is Coach Mac Brown?
He's great with the guys. He had, when Chris came down for his visit, he spent 35 minutes with Mac Brown in his office. So
it's pretty cool.
Who told you he was a football guy?
Chris was a football guy?
Yeah, who told you that?
I saw him play football in high school.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I guess I'm trying to take credit once again.
Yeah. Coach Metz, way to answer that, not give Mike the credit he's fishing for.
This is glorious. What a film. This is cool. Really cool, Coach. Who's in the what are the opposite colors, the orange colors? Is that significant?
I think the orange colors, if I'm not mistaken, are guys that we have to be careful with for one reason or another medically. We didn't want them to be contacted too much for something or other. When I was pulling this film off, I'm like, this is going to look really strange, but I'm assuming we only wear especially in the fall, we only wear the red or orange jerseys when guys are hurt. So they must have been medically not qualified to be full contact, but since it's not a 6-on-6 type situation or full field, it's unsettled. Our trainers let us play it out a little bit.
That's a nice
loophole. The guy just shot. That was Klutz.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, so he wasn't cleared for a island double to a.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. When I was looking at it, I was like, why are these guys not? But
we run that loophole as well. We're allowed, if it's a numbers drill at times, a contact, but we don't change their color. So it's interesting.
Yeah, we just put guys that we don't want guys to wind up and try to crush. We put them in red jerseys just so that everybody's aware of them. There are scout team jerseys, so when other guys play, when we have other teams and Coach Yu is doing the scout, he puts those guys in the orange jerseys with numbers on them. So during the fall, usually we just give them out as injury jerseys.
Coach, a drill like this that has there's a lot going on. Like Jay was saying, it could be settled, could be odd man. You're coming from different directions. The pace, is quick. You got some freshmen out there, obviously they're adjusting to the pace of college play. What's maybe one common mistake that you notice in a drill like this that's very important for you to correct in order to just evolve as a team in transition?
The one thing that we talk about the most, especially with unsettled and these kinds of drills, is spacing. Creating space so that one guy can't cover two. So a lot of times young guys want to get too close to the goal. They're afraid that if they don't shoot it 6 yards or 7 yards that they're not going to score, and they may or may not. That might be a thing for them, but they can't crowd another guy who's already in that space. So we talk about spacing a lot. You don't necessarily need to move and cut too much. You need to make sure that you're spaced properly so that as the defense, we assume the defense is always going to do something right. If they're doing it right, this is how you beat it. If they do something wrong, we have to teach that. But the spacing makes it a lot easier to see if the defense is doing it right or wrong.
Cool. Love that. This is a great drill.
Great drill. Really cool. So how often do you guys do that? Is that a once a week drill, or is that you touching that as often as you can? Or
those years it's been once a week. There's been some years where we don't have enough healthy bodies to run up and down that are to do that. So we've developed other drills to try to mimic some of those things. Small field drills similar to that, that can kind of mimic a unsettled situation. You guys, I saw the 4-on-3 up and down, we'll do that. We'll do, if you can get a hold of one of the old talks that I did my second year at Carolina after we won it, I was at the convention. I did a bunch of drills that kind of were up-tempo drills to force guys to both offensively and defensively handle the ball, play defense, change direction, try to give us that. And the one thing that we found out is we could do a 4-on-3 at one end, which with our offensive guys being the offense, our best offensive guys, and our best short sticks and poles being on the defensive side. And it was 3 middies and 1 attackman. And then that would turn into a transition the other way where our guys would have to learn to either get in a hole or get off with guys. And so we didn't have to practice full field, but we still got the transition defense, transition offense in, and then we would switch things around, So you have to be willing to take your time and say, all right, you guys got to switch jerseys. You're now coming in from the box to play offense. You're now doing this. So we did a bunch of different things like that to try to eliminate the stuff when you got, 6 or 7 guys hurt. The one year, I think it was 2017, if you saw our last game, we were trying to get in the playoffs, and we had 15 guys in polo shirts and khakis on the sidelines. And if you're carrying 50, that doesn't leave you with much less. So
that's why
I was doing our
60 to 70 plus guys, we can do it a few more times.
Yeah.
I was doing our locker room diagram yesterday, and we have 44 lockers for 62 guys. So some shared lockers for sure.
Well, definitely. And we were talking about that the other day. Right now we have 50, 60 guys, but we have, I think, 48 lockers. And then we have 1 locker that houses the media center in it. So we usually put the undergraduate assistant coaches or the hurt guys in that locker. They can just hang up their stuff and not have to worry about equipment too much.
Beautiful. Well, should we dive into the film? What are you guys thinking? You want to roll into UNC Duke here, or excuse me, UNC Denver? I don't mean to say that other North Carolina team, Coach.
It's all right.
But I'll set the stage here. Second quarter, I think it's 5-0, Coach Metz, right?
I believe right? So, yeah.
5-0. This is 2020 for our viewers. And let's get rolling. Now, is this Tucci facing off?
Yeah, it's Tucci facing off.
Avon product.
He was great. This year when we played Bryant, he crushed it and helped us win the game. We had to score a lot of goals for that game. Yeah, the guy with the balls is Mike's guy.
Move the ball.
So just
well, can you move the ball here, Coach? You set up a nice little big little for him, and you're gonna get a little numbers advantage here.
Well, we were setting it up to Tucci didn't do a good job. We were trying to do a subbing situation. He didn't set a good pick. We did get something coming out of the box.
Oh, wow. All right. Eat my words.
So
you do a lot of this stuff, Coach?
We were holding it off. So as we were going up here, we were getting someone out. And we did a good job right there of doing a 6-on-5 coming in. And right. Justin Anderson, Perry to Justin Anderson, just let it go. And defensively, we were playing great early in the quarter. As I said, if we played settled defense, we seemed to be much better off. It's always for me, it's always a nerve-wracking game playing Coach T.
Why is that?
Just because, we're friends and, I take everything personally, and I'm sure he does, like all of us do. But, when you play somebody, you dislike them a lot during the course of 2 hours. I'm sure there's other guys you dislike every day of the year, but, with him, it's just 2 hours out of my year. And, I've gotten used to it, but, it's a sense of pride to kind of beat, like if you were coaching against Jeff Long, you would want to beat him,
Yes.
So.
Yeah, you're really shutting Denver down. That first rotation was awesome.
Yeah, that rotation was great.
Our guys were really dialed in. And as I said, in the first quarter, you'll see this as the quarter goes on, but, we make mistakes on the offensive side of the ball, which hurts us defensively.
Mike, you go back to what you highlighted before. I just think it's such an underrated skill, right? Like this guy doesn't chase his man away from the action. And now just visually for the Dodger, he's staring at the slide guy. It's just so different. If that guy follows his man, the Dodger's like, oh, look at all this green grass I can now beat a short stick under.
Yep.
Yeah, your off-ball posture is really good, Coach. J.O. talks about that a lot.
Yeah.
Stick out,
stick in, body out. Yeah.
Yeah. Good approach.
Must be late in the clock here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here we go.
I ate it. That's
good job by our short stick to realize he shouldn't pick it up, and then we throw it ahead. Now, again, this is one of those things where our guys have got to understand, even though we tried to throw it to the point guy, let's make simple passes. Now they come back down, I think, and bang.
Score.
We make a mistake on the offensive side, gives them a goal, on this side. And that's what I was upset for, is like, let's make simple plays instead of trying to hit guys.
Right.
Coach, I don't know
your opinion. That's that dog drill, Coach.
Coach, I don't know your opinion on this. I feel like one of the hardest things to coach is guys understanding like the flow of the game, right? Like we just forced a shot clock violation. Like, let's make the simple play. Like you're saying, we don't need to hit a home run right off that.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in, KYP, know your personnel, and also know your role.
Right.
And if you're a D-Mitty, then, you're a D-Mitty for a reason. You'd be on offense if we are asking you to shoot the ball. You've got to give the ball up and do the right thing. Now, there's times when D-Mitties, when I was at Loyola, our D-Mitties spent as much time with me as they did with Coach Doin playing defense. So they were part of that.
Will Seal slip on the backside here, Coach? Chris, not holding the seal long enough.
He sealed and then he cut. He was trying to slip it, which allowed Perry to get an outside shoot, shot. With him shooting it, I'll take it a lot. The thing I was probably most proud of this year was our man up was 76% for the year.
Crazy.
That's absurd.
And
what's your goal, Coach? Like, what percentage are you looking for?
I think anybody's offensive goal is to shoot 50%.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a good time for that.
So you're just going open back to 3-3, Coach?
Yeah.
A little rotation on that backside?
As I said, guys, when I talk to guys and guys ask me what I like to do man up, I'm a 3-3 guy. So I'll do everything I can. I'll do a lot of different things, but I'll end up going back to a 3-3 because I think if you have the right personnel, it's the hardest thing to cover.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, just backing it up to show your little wheel, your 3-man wheel action on that righty side. Give people an idea for what you're doing. And then you kind of wheel out of it again. Chris must have felt pretty comfortable in that. Did you watch any of our tape from the year before, Coach?
Yeah. It's funny. Can you back it up for a second?
Yeah. Where do you want me?
So right there. So go ahead. Go. Let it run. I'll tell you to pause it. So pause it right here. So the guy who scores the goal screws up because he's supposed to be moving already.
He's supposed to be cutting?
He should be moving already to create an option, because if he cuts, he's going to track one of those two guys. Chris could be wide open and step in, but because he doesn't cut right away, it opens up something later on. And this is where guys have to learn to adapt and adjust to certain things. But now all of a sudden the defense is turning their heads, and he gets a great job of getting a free cut right into the middle area, and is able to finish it.
How often do you throw through X in the 3-3?
A lot. That's one of my big things. Is that I tell my bottom guys to play 1 yard behind the goal line extended so that we can throw the ball behind the goal.
And Coach, are those bottom guys pinched, like push pulling, like kind of like pop?
Yeah, push pull on the bottom. Yep.
Yeah.
10-man ride. Forgot. Why are we fast forwarding here, Coach Slip? 10-man ride on the loss here, Coach.
Oh yeah.
Like,
we're. I mean, I don't know if I was a big 10-man rider until I got to Carolina, and Coach Bresci is a big 10-man rider. So we, the year we won it, we 10-manned everybody, and we just learned to play. And I think the more you learn to play at that pace, even when you back off the 10-man, your guys are riding that much harder.
Right. That's our base ride as well. We love the 10-man. Coach Latz. Denver does.
He's
they
a
want to play
Carolina
6
guy.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think he's more of a Federaca guy, is where he gets the 10-man
True.
ride. But yes, he is a Carolina alum. He talks about those days often. He's become a swimmer now. So we had Pete Sess on the other day, Coach, and we were talking about our 2-on-2 game with me and Pete. And actually, Coach Latz and I beat Max and Poley 6 times. We hadn't lost, and then he retired to swimming.
Poley's good too.
Poley's legit. He retired to swimming, so I've been chirping him for quite a while now that he's become a swimmer in his exercises.
So right there, almost looked like a BU play, I think.
You try to do the slip or the switch, and seal this. You stealing that too, Coach? I guess they say good coaches steal from better coaches.
I think Chris was trying to get him to seal so that he could hit the guy on the drift.
Right.
Usually I make it a cut. And that one's
that's dangerous.
That's my pet peeve with guys, is that they always are looking to the crease instead of looking straight in front of them.
Yep, agreed.
So that's a bad mistake. Right here is a bad mistake by, instead of just bailing out and dodge and throwing the ball through X, we tried to make something happen because we had a lead, and now the ball goes this way. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we ride.
Well, going back to that read portion.
Oh, we get this one back. We get this one back. Go all the way back to when he starts his dodge.
Well, that was the one thing I was our reads too. I mean, when you talk about that football aspect of coaching your offense,
right there.
we always, yeah.
So we got a great cut.
Yeah.
And this guy should have rolled over quicker, but you got to look in front of you first, not look through the crease. So the important part is to roll over. And the top guy didn't do a great job.
Stepping down. Yeah, right here.
Yeah, he's a lefty, so he didn't want to roll over to his right too much. And if it's your offhand, you got to roll over even more.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. You got to over exaggerate it. Yep. So you pick this off.
But he does it. He redeems himself because we get a pick on the 10-man.
Gotta love that. Let's get another good possession here. See if we can't get one on both sides.
Oh, what a ground ball.
Seriously.
Matt Wright was phenomenal at pole for us as a freshman.
He's a Hill Academy guy, right, Coach?
Yeah.
Yep.
What was your bread and butter this year, Coach? 3 out? No, I remember we talked a little bit about you kind of ran a little 1-3-2.
We had two, like our 3 out was, if we wanted it to be midi orientated, we would be 3 out. If we were looking to do others, we were 2-2-2 like this, where we could big little it pretty easily. Some guys still, and that's the interesting part is some guys still don't, understand.
It's got to be a save.
I'd like to
That's
see
Mike's
that.
boy.
Yeah, I'd like to see that defenseman step around this clear through, right? Like I think we've talked about it in the past. Like I call it like post defense, right? Like step in front and around. Mike, I know you love to get your guys behind their man. I like our guys to be in front, which is ironic because then we'd both be happy if we got what we wanted.
Right.
But I think if he can get outside of this, it would widen out Chris a little bit on this dodge.
He can really shoot it on the run lefty. I think he's a better on the run shooter. Maybe not, but
You can shoot with both hands.
yeah, you think? Don't forget who taught him that stuff. All right, Coach.
I know.
Flippo fishing for credit again. Interesting.
What's the Chris Gray ticker at? I don't think it's as high as you guys expected coming into this episode.
I have it at 3 right now.
I think we're at 4.5.
So pause it right there. So I don't know. Look at the bench. Go by the table. Right there, the girl in the black.
Yeah.
That's my daughter.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. She's the manager for the men's team.
Wow. Coach T.
You get some inside information?
Not usually. She's pretty good about that. I think she's probably more torn during the game than I am.
Coach Metz, can you talk about the environment at this stadium? Like, do you like playing here?
I mean, thankfully we've won both the times we've been out there since I've been there. But the environment is pretty cool. It's high intensity. You hear the people, they're very vocal, they're supportive. I know when I was coaching at Loyola, I didn't get to play out here, but the Loyola guys said that they were, brutal. The fans were just all over them. And like when you run to the locker room, it's, like people are giving you shit the entire time.
It's great. They have legit
awesome.
fans. It's crazy.
And they've had sellouts for the last 7 years.
That's very cool.
It is super cool.
So
was there anything during the week defensively you guys were worried about? I know Coach Brown is one of them.
Obviously you're worried about Hannah. You're worried about
Walker.
Ethan Walker. We weren't too sure. The Silstrop kid, who's a freshman, had a really good game early against Air Force and played well against Duke. And so we were trying to figure out, what he was going to do.
It
looked like a lot of slides early in the possession.
This ball movement is awesome. Watch this. Bang. Falls asleep at X.
That's that skill we talked about last time, Mike, about not wanting to screen the goalie. And because he is too slow to get across when the ball switches sides of the field.
It also looks like he's looking to back this shot up.
Right.
Oh, actually, no, I think you're right.
I think he's just trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, no, good point.
Well, we had some issues where guys were literally standing in front of our goalie at times, and and I talked to goalies and Coach Bresci about look, I mean, we got to play defense, but they got to understand they can't just stand right in front of Caton or our goalies because they can't see the ball.
Right.
Slick play there by that pole.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's watch this last possession here, and I think we can go to outside the lines. So this is your 2-2-2 here, Coach. Little pairs action.
Yeah.
Big little. So does it matter who you pair up in the middle of the two, or you just?
We try to do a big little if we can. Initially we try to do a big little, but I think a lot of times, we try to match up hands, maybe some more also. So I let the guys feel it out because the more they're comfortable, the better, the quicker they play with better decision making, just knowing guys.
And so what's his rule set here? He's got to get through, right?
Yeah, he's got to get through. Chris is playing off ball. He should have been – the guy getting through should have been lower.
Right. Well, he looks to pick this again. This is that, looks like he's almost trying to seal this defender.
Well, I think what you guys are doing a great job of, too. It looks like Denver's not really sure where they're coming from or if they're coming adjacent, which makes that guy such a prime seal candidate.
Yeah.
Right.
right? Like, because there's not really a well-defined crease, and it almost looks like him and the other guy aren't really sure. Are we going crease? Are we adjacent? So they both kind of guard that guy.
That was one hell of a shot too.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Wasn't even a great feed.
Especially off the handle.
Yeah, exactly. That angle too, outside that. That's awesome.
And that's something that like you can't show a younger kid because that was just I don't know. Probably should have released that from a different spot and just I don't know. That was unbelievable.
That's one of those that, Coach, tell me if I'm wrong, but if that's a stick side, it's almost, if that's a save, you got some ammo when he comes to the bench.
Yeah, I mean, but it's, I give certain guys, extra play. Perry's one of those guys, that he's going to take extra shots, and he might take a bad shot here or there, but he's probably got an extra, I'll give him a lot more leeway than some other guys.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that gets lost with like a less refined shooter is like they just want to get there without earning that.
Yeah.
Like, well, I watched the Hopkins game and so dropped his hands and stung it. And it's like, right, but that kid's been burying shots fundamentally for years before that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, he didn't just go straight there all the time. So I think
that's the one thing that, like, when the Gates, obviously the Gates are still popular, but when the Gates were really popular, everybody wanted to do the behind the backs, and everybody's like, well, why aren't we doing this? And I'm like, well, the reason why they're really good is because they can do the simple stuff really easy. And
right.
So they make the hard stuff really look easy also. You guys can't throw and catch yet, so why should you try to throw and catch behind your back?
Right.
And like, is he the type of guy that's like probably taking more shots when no one's watching, would you say, on the team?
Yeah, he'll go out and shoot. 2 years ago, I would say he was in a funk and hadn't scored in 3 games. And, we got on him a little bit, and he went out. He would go out in the afternoons and do extra shooting for like 45 minutes every afternoon. And then last year or 2 years ago when we played Duke, he came back and scored 4 goals by drilling shots in the corner. And, that just goes to show you, like, when you put in the extra time, you're going to correct a lot of your things. The other thing that, I noticed too, and I'm sure, Mike, you see a lot, is when it doesn't matter if you shoot 1,000 shots, if you're not shooting with good form and technique, you're just creating more bad habits, So some guys I'm worried about form and technique. Other guys, they just need to get volume. They have their arms extended. They do all the right things. They just need to get volume in.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, we touched on it in the film room, your relationship with Coach T. Can you just go back for a second and just take us through your lax journey real quick and just discuss why you guys have such a deep connection? You guys kind of go back, and why you guys are so tight.
I mean, I was leaving coaching actually, and he called me up and said, "Hey, you want to coach?" I was working at camp, and I met him, and we started coaching together. And for some reason, we just sort of hit it off. But when you're with somebody for 20 years, coaching with them at a place and had success like we had, it dawns on you a little bit. But through those 20 years, I got married. I had both of my kids. Both of my parents passed away during that time, so he became not only a friend, a father, and a mentor, but a lot of things. So plus I was I should say my wife and my kids were living in Philadelphia, and I was commuting to Princeton every day, which is about an hour drive.
Wow.
And I know some of you guys in Long Island going to Manhattan and stuff like that, it can be that way on a train, but you're spending that time. So like all of a sudden you hit a snag, and you're practicing from 6 to 9 at night, and it's snowing, you don't go home. So I spent a lot of time early in the season, when things were kind of hectic and weather wasn't great, just staying at his house and staying with him and stuff like that. So that's probably why we became really good friends. And as I said, not only that, was just being a mentor and being around him and all that. And I besides him, and I got introduced to him and Coach Cottle and some of the other really great coaches by, coaching with Coach Chillinglaw before that, because he was friends with all those guys. And so I was fortunate enough to be around, a good group of coaches when I started growing up. So
initially, when you weren't sure if you wanted to kind of like get into coaching, when he kind of convinced you to work alongside him, did you know right away, like, hey, I'm glad I listened to him, or did it take time to kind of like adjust?
Well, it wasn't so much that, I was leaving coaching because, I wasn't getting paid anything at Delaware, and he convinced me to coach for another year, and we had success, so at my first year at Princeton, we went to the playoffs, so I said, all right, I'll do it one more year, and then I did it, another year, and then all of a sudden we won it, and winning is one of those things. When you win it, you want to go back and do it again. And that's one of the things that drives me so much, is that, and I'm sure drives him, is that we've tasted what it is like to get to the very top. And once you taste that, you want to get back there, so there are years when we win it, I feel like I drive myself harder that summer afterwards to make sure that there's no falter. And then there's other times when we've had really bad years where I've been like, all right, I need to take a step back and rethink this and figure out what we're doing wrong. But, right now it's just during those times, it just kept fueling the fire. Every time we won it, it was like, all right, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And then if we didn't win it, it was like, all right, what do we got to do to fix it? I liken it very much to playing golf. You have a great round, you want to go play again right away. You have a bad round, you want to go play again right away because you want to fix what you did wrong, and you can't stand the fact that you had played bad golf.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of it.
Great analogy. How many championships, Coach?
7.
How many did you lose?
He doesn't get asked this a lot.
I can't believe there's more championships games for him to potentially lose.
2. I know definitely 2, maybe 3.
So you potentially went to 10 national championships. Wow, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You got to get you a good deal.
I think someone said there's 14 Final Fours.
The fact that you're losing count of Final Fours is ridiculous.
I lost count of championships. I just worry about the next one. That's my thing. Just worry about the next one.
Give me who are some guys that like you just love coach, regardless of where you were, Princeton, Loyola. Who are some guys that stand out, just like characters and someone you
characters? Wow, there's a lot of characters out there, but guys I love coaching were, there was most of them are attackmen. I'm gonna be honest with you. Most of them are attackmen because I was an attackman, and I think those guys are the guys that drive the ship. But having Hess Hubbard Massey at Princeton for basically starting for 3 years, but coaching them for 4 years was unbelievable. Those guys were funny, and if you ever got on a group chat with those guys, you'd be amazed at how smart and how dumb they are at the same time. But I think back to a lot of the Princeton years of guys like Scott Batchkalupo, one of the best goalies I think to ever play the game, Kevin Lowe, Justin Torlani, those guys are my the first championship years, so. But there are definitely some interesting guys going on. I mean, the guys at Loyola were, Justin Ward, Nico Pontrello. I mean, that group that I was at Loyola they were a bunch of clowns, and they were fun guys to be around, but they worked their ass off, Sawyer, Ward, Nico, Chris Lane, Scott Ratliff. Runkle was hilarious. He was awesome. But those guys were great. And then I get to Carolina, and you get guys like Pafani and Nico's brother Steven. So those guys are pretty funny. And then just the normal thing of the guys that win. You know, when you have winning teams, you tend to bond with those guys a lot. But even some of the teams that we didn't, you know, there were some really good guys. You know, Ralitza, who's in the PLL now, is just absolutely crazy and hilarious. But what a competitor! You know, the Kelly family. I'll just leave it at that. The Kelly family is awesome. You know, top to bottom, every one of them competes like hell. So they're great kids to be around. You know, I don't think there's too many bad kids out there unless as we as coaches let them be bad kids.
Mm-hmm. You find that as part of your kind of like job description, besides being a lacrosse coach, just kind of like molding kids to do the right thing as they move to being young professionals? I
mean, besides the winning and losing, I think at least in lacrosse, you know, the part about lacrosse is obviously you're not gonna last long if you don't win or win somewhat. But you know, keeping your kids out of trouble, teaching them to do the right things, having them have a great positive, you know, experience, and hopefully they grow up and you can teach them to become an adult. You know what you're going to have to understand. You know, things you're doing now for lacrosse are going to help you learn to work out in the business world or be an adult later on in life.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
It's awesome.
You know, just to give you a little bit of background, but I spent 2 years at the Naval Academy, my first 2 years. And so that kind of defined like how I drive myself also, because I was good friends with Coach Long, because he's a Naval Academy guy. And, you know, when he was coaching at Virginia and I was first coaching at Delaware, we used to do a bunch of camps together and we would hang out a lot, you know, and he's an interesting character, but I'm sure as Mike knows, you know, but you know, he's
my coach T, Metzy.
Yeah, he's got his ducks in a row though, man. He does. So, but that kind of set my, I think, tone for the rest of the time. I was, you know, once I started coaching, I started thinking back to that. They kind of set everything up of how I do things, and how, when you look back at that experience, how you want to change as a person going into college.
So you were there for 2 years at the academy. Take us through, just like real quick, high school and then your college days.
Well, I grew up in Baltimore, went to Calvert Hall and Loyola, transferred schools there because my brother wanted to transfer, and then went to the academy because, you know, that was who I was kind of recruited the most by back then. I got recruited by a couple other schools, and, you know, a couple things didn't fall through, but so I went there. Got recruited by Dick Slaza, and he left during plebe summer. So the new coaching staff came in, didn't really see me fit in their picture. I tried to fight my way through it, and then I just said, you know, I got to get out, you know. And part of me going to school was playing lacrosse, so I wanted just to go someplace and see if I could get a chance to play, since I wasn't going to get a chance at the academy. And you know, went to Delaware, and, you know, was luckily walked into a great situation, and got there, and they were like, you know, after the first couple practices, they were like, you're going to be one of our starting attackmen. And got to play with Randy Powers, a West Jenny guy, who phenomenal player, and another guy, Steve Shaw, who up until, you know, Alex Smith at Delaware and TD and Baptiste was probably the NCAA leader in faceoffs for a long time. You know, we had a really good team back then, but we just weren't smart enough off the field, I think, to, you know, win, and probably good enough on the field to win unless we were really focused in. Like nowadays, it doesn't matter who you play. You know, if the team that's supposed to win comes out and plays, doesn't give the other team respect, someone else that respects them more and works harder, they're going to beat them. You know, you see it all the time. You know, nothing taken away from any of those teams, but like you see it regularly. Richmond's beating people; they're a good team, you know. But if everybody looks at the standings, they're like, they shouldn't beat an ACC team. You know, High Point, you know, upsets teams. You know, there's always someone that's going to upset somebody here or there. You know. So you see it all the time, that if you don't come ready to play on any given day, you're going to get upset. And that's why a lot of teams, like Mike was saying, you know, back in his day in Division III, they played every Wednesday and Saturday. Now, you know, if you think you have a week off, it's a little bit different. Guys tend to say, we get an easy one this week, or a Tuesday game. We get an easy Tuesday game before a hard Saturday game. How many guys get beat on Tuesday? Tons of them, because they don't take them seriously, you know, and that's the hard part.
Joe, have you had any big time wins on a Tuesday night of late?
Any big time wins? I'm trying to think.
Or even defeats. I guess that goes for both. Joe, you can answer this too, because as a D1 program, I'm curious if like you played a team that maybe you weren't supposed to hang with and you beat them.
Yeah, we had 2 years ago, Virginia came and played us at Manhattan on a Tuesday night. They did like bus trip day of, and they had played Syracuse on Sunday, and it's kind of like Coach Metzbower alluded to, kind of like a trap spot. You know, and for us, we were on a 3-game winning streak against obviously teams more in the mid-major realm, but our guys were pretty confident. We ended up, I think it was like a 7-5 game, and a game that we were up or tied for a large portion of it. But like to your point, Coach, it's like, I mean, you guys came and played us my first year at Manhattan, and you guys beat us 18-2 the year that you guys won the national championship. You know, and then 2 years later, we're playing Virginia, and it could have gone that way. But I think for whatever reason, like you said, midweek games are a little bit for the hunter. So I think our guys were motivated and ready to play somebody that traveled 8 hours on a bus that day.
Yeah, well, you guys, unfortunately, your first year, you walked into a hornet's nest because we had just lost at UMass the day before.
Yep.
And were pissed. And I think, or we played you guys on a Monday, I think.
Yeah, we played on a Monday at like 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
and
we
like
played Monday.
Brutal weather. Yeah.
The weather was awful. I just remember that. And I remember at halftime, Coach Bressy was still pissed at the guys. And he's like, stay out there. We're going to do drills during the whole halftime.
Yep.
And I'm just –
Coach, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I think you guys just scored again in that game.
It was just one of those things. It was bad. It was just, you know, our guy, he was pissed. He was yelling and screaming at guys. And guys were told that if they screwed up at one bit, they were getting yanked. And so guys were like, we can't let up. We have to play every second of everything. And it was just, I felt bad for 2 reasons. One, I had the flu. And 2, I was just like, this is, you know, by halftime, I was like, as long as we just play right. And he was trying to pound it home, which again, I think it probably helped us out in the long run that year, you know, made everybody a little bit tougher and made us want a little bit more. But unfortunately, it was against you guys. Well,
Coach, I have a funny memory from that game. I think you guys got like 8-man ups in the game. And I haven't checked the stats in a while, but I think you guys might've been like 1 for 8 on man up, which is something I was hanging my hat on as a victory in a 16-goal loss. But I invented a man-down defense during the game where you guys would put Goldstock top center, and I'm sure you didn't want to show a lot because you guys were beating us. And we were doing anytime he was 1 pass away, we shut him. Anytime he was 2 passes away, we didn't. And I have a distinct memory of you and him yelling at each other going into like the 4th man up. And he was like, Coach, they're shutting me sometimes. And you're like, well, Luke, stop freaking out. Like, just calm down, man. And I just have like that distinct memory in my head of that game. And I was like, well, we did a lot wrong, but I guess we did something right.
Yeah. I mean, that was actually probably the game when I finally said, you know, Luke, you're an inside guy. You're not a top center guy. And that's probably when we switched everything.
Yep. So, you know, for me, Coach, you guys,
that's priceless.
You know, don't feel too bad. There was something positive came out of that for the Jaspers, I guess. That and Coach Kelleher and I always joke because he's very tight with Coach Fifes. Drew likes to tell Coach Fifes we're still waiting for our championship rings from that year because we got you guys on the right track.
That was it. That was an interesting. We lost to UMass on Saturday. We were, you know, after the game, we met at the hotel up in UMass and went through probably a 2-hour meeting of, you know, guys stepping up and talking and saying certain things and telling people, either calling people out or telling people, like, hey, we got to understand who we are and what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. And as I said, we got up to UMass on Friday, and our athletic trainer wouldn't let me go to practice on Friday because I was rolling in with like 104 fever. And I was
flu
just
game.
And I was just trying to coach the next day, and I was laughing, and Mike knows Matt Strebel's on the sidelines is like, what's the matter with you? And I'm like, dude, I'm sick as a dog right now.
What a legend. The Strebel family. That's a great family.
Yeah. There's a character. So guys like that and Boyle, are very interesting. Strebel's definitely one of the overall all character teams, but those guys, I think, you get a ton of guys that, I've been coaching enough that all of a sudden I get back on some of these Zoom calls. This is the cool thing about the pandemic is that I can't obviously get to New York City or some places where guys are all the time because I'm in Carolina now. And, but now they're saying, well, we can't go out to a bar, so let's get on a Zoom. And I've been invited to a bunch of Zooms by the Princeton teams of old and just seeing everybody's face and getting back, even if it's for 25 minutes, just shooting the shit with those guys has been awesome.
Awesome. Well, Coach Metzbower, we appreciate your time. This was
no problem. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Hopefully I fulfilled what Mike was hoping for.
Oh, this was great.
I'm sure he didn't get enough. Coach. He didn't get enough praise in this one, but I know he'll figure some way to get it in.
We'll have to make it a recurring spot. Maybe bi-monthly we can do Mike Filippo words of confidence with Coach Metzbower.
I think Coach Metz might be in for that. So, all right. I'll see you guys.
All right. See you guys. Have a good time. Thanks a lot.
You're the best.
Take care, man.